Ukraine is known for innovation, creating new drones, new technologies, new means by which they can defend themselves to fight a war for their freedom against those trying to invade them. The Russians, on the other hand, are they also trying to create new technologies? Are they also innovating new technologies? No, they're not. In fact, Vladimir Putin just promoted a general who is known for mass casualty assaults. That's sort of incredible and is a big difference between Ukraine and Russia in this war. Ukraine is endlessly fighting to make sure they can provide security for its soldiers and its civilians. The Russians, they're not really interested in that. They're interested only in taking more land. So Moscow is promoting the meat grinder, its oil refineries are burning, and yet they don't see that there's a problem. The fact is, there is a very big problem. There is no way for Russia to win. And this very backwards thinking that they have is one of the reasons that Ukrainian victory is closer than ever. My name is Jason Smart. I am a special correspondent for the Kiev Post, and I'm also a national security advisor living here in Kiev, Ukraine. So what we see right now is truly very interesting. There's a lot going on. And what's the most interesting is simply the Russian mentality, the way that they look at the current situation. There's no sane way that somebody could argue that Russia is winning this war. Just look at the summer offensive. Despite having over 210,000 casualties, Russia had no tangible gains. It was a total disaster for the Russians. Yet, somehow, the press never picks it up. The press acts as if Russia is doing fine. Russia is advancing. But it's quite the opposite. Russia is losing. So help me get the truth to more people about what is happening here on the ground in Ukraine and what's happening really in neighboring Russia. The way you can do that? Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and consider becoming a channel member today. So it's interesting to see that the Russians, despite the fact that they can't control the situation in their own country, not only they have Ukrainian drones that are destroying the oil industry, they also have partisan groups within Russia trying to overthrow the Putin regime. Despite this, Russia doesn't find innovative solutions. It doesn't know how to stop the Ukrainian drones, and it surely does not know how to advance inside of Ukraine. And that's why they've gone from one failure to another, one disaster after another, and they continue doing it. And it makes it all the more absurd the longer the time goes on. Just think about this. Gerasimov, he's the head of the military. Gerasimov now has a briefing map in his office that labels Odesa and Mykolaiv, which are parts of Ukraine, as part of Russia's southern military district. Now, what's that mean? How should we interpret that? Well, let's consider this. People in the Duma, which is the parliament of Russia, from the Defense Committee, are saying that they need 20-kilometer, which is about 12-mile, buffer zones with Ukraine, and that they also need to take over more regions of Ukraine. Could Russia realistically take over these different regions? Well, let's consider this. Independent assessments have said that Russia would need to capture 9 major cities. It would also need to take over cities totaling more than 5.6 million people. That doesn't seem very likely. If Russia, during the course of the summer, was not able to take over villages with populations of a couple thousand, how would they hope to take over entire urban centers? It is wholly unrealistic. And yet they press forward. Because the Russian military doesn't reward you for being rational, for thinking, for being innovative. They reward you for doing what you're told. And so, ultimately, do you really care? It's not your soldiers. You send them off to die. It's what Putin wanted. You did what your boss told you to do. And they are not making advances. This is just one more reason that it's so clear that Russia cannot win this war. It doesn't have the capacity. It doesn't have a plan to do so. It doesn't have the tools to do so. And it just keeps destroying itself. And this is all while Ukrainian drones are turning Russia's fuel system into a target. We see that these repairs, as they call them, unscheduled repairs, across Russia are causing huge shortages of gasoline. Look at all the attacks that have come in just the past couple of weeks. Volgograd, Samara, Kubyshev, Syzran, one after another. This is amazing. Russia is losing the ability to refine oil. Russia, a country known for oil production, is struggling with gasoline shortages. It's struggling with price spikes. It is being strained in its war logistics because it lacks refined oil. That is actually sort of incredible. That's quite an achievement. So today, Russia's in a difficult situation. And it definitely won't get better because they continue doing things that just don't make sense. Like promoting generals who are known to be butchers, referred to as butchers by their own soldiers. And they're the ones that get promoted. And Russia, it's not very good at anything that it thinks it's good at. For instance, Russia believes that it is a master at espionage. It's a master of the dark arts. And in fact, the FSB's 5th Directorate, 5th Service, is in charge of dealing with the former Soviet republics, the near abroad, as they call it in Russian. So these countries, such as Moldova, are countries where they believe that they have almost a right to influence the outcomes, to manipulate what occurs there. Well, they were so obvious in what they were doing that they've just been hit by sanctions from abroad. And that's because everyone knows what the 5th Directorate's doing. Everybody understands how this game is played. And what's funny about that, though, is that right now, that 5th Directorate, this one who has done such a colossally bad job in Moldova, it had earlier been accused for many of the failures inside of Ukraine. It had been the one that promised Putin that everything was under control. This would be a 3-day special military operation. But ultimately, do those people get fired? Do they get dismissed? Do they get jailed? No, because ultimately, nobody cares. What is important is that they are loyal, that they are obedient. But that's exactly what you don't want to have in a well-functioning system. A well-functioning system requires people to give feedback, to say this is not working, let's find a better way to do it. But nobody's really interested in that. Everybody's interested in loyalty. Just think about this. Russia's 155th, back in 2022, it's naval infantry. So its commanders were accused of mass losses and sending people out for suicidal assaults. And despite that fiasco, that disaster, which made a lot of news at the time, the general in charge was promoted to lead the 20th Combined Arms Army. He was awarded the title Hero of Russia, which was assigned to everybody, which every single soldier would have understood. Obedience counts more than outcomes. And throughout the Russian military, we see this. We see this obsession with obedience. It's irrational, it's causing losses, and it's not getting them any closer to reaching their objectives. And yet, they persist. They just do not stop. They are sure that this is the right path to go, because Russia has never known another path. It's unfortunately a country that's never had good leadership. It's gone from one bad leader after another, and no leader who has ever really cared about what happens to their people. Now, there's something else that's very important here, is that the Russians are trying to use all these different things, like leaving out a map that shows Odessa as part of Russia, as part of the negotiation strategy. Undoubtedly, they are going to continue to try to convince the West that Russia has the potential, the real capacity to invade, to push further inside of Ukraine. But the fact is that they don't. We see that. We just saw the summer offensive collapse. We are watching oil refineries burn daily. We are watching logistics blow up. So why do they do this? Because they know how propaganda works. If you keep repeating a message, people start to believe it. So people believe this myth of giant Russia, Russia the bear, Russia that cannot be defeated. It doesn't even make sense. There is no evidence that they are going to win. There is no evidence that they are advancing. And I would ask anybody who says that really believes that Russia is winning, show me the evidence to support that argument. There is no tangible evidence, no statistics, no data. There is nothing, not even anecdotal information that would indicate that Russia is somehow getting ahead. Quite the opposite. Russia is becoming unraveled. For Russia, this situation is becoming truly dangerous. Just think about this. Within Russia itself, their banks are really low in liquidity. We've already seen that the government is restricting people's ability to take their money out. We see that within Russia, more and more people are starting to have concerns. And we know they're having concerns because they've stopped taking out money for mortgages, for instance, because they realize that they will probably not be able to pay it back. But the banks really aren't in a position to give out a lot of mortgages because, in fact, the interest rates are so high. It's 18%. Now, the lack of liquidity in the Russian markets, the lack of flow, that's causing problems as well. Industries in Russia are losing money. A third of Russian businesses this year have said that they are not profitable. So Vladimir Putin and his team can continue to dream on about taking over more of Ukraine, but there's no evidence that they can do it. They physically do not have the capacity. So even when Russia meets with other countries, let's say China or India, They might try to say that they're on the same team, that they're partners, that they'll work together. But what sort of partner are they? Well, what can Russia provide that somebody needs? Okay, oil and gas. Aside from that, what can Russia provide? Russia cannot provide much. Russia is sorely lacking. So as this war goes on, we'll see more and more that Russia makes these sort of insane claims that it has the ability or the capacity to take more land, to push deeper within Ukraine, but it doesn't. The key is that Ukraine continues to have technologies, continues to have the innovation necessary to repel the Russians, to keep the Russians at bay. The Russians, on the other hand, they don't have that. They have generals being promoted who are known for sending in tens of thousands of men to needlessly die, to gain no territory, but to die. But most importantly, the Kremlin likes that. The Kremlin thinks that's great, because that means that general, he was obedient. So if you're in a system like this, you're in a military like this, and you realize there's no hope of victory, and there's no plan for victory, and there's clearly no plan for worrying about my well-being or my security, why would you stick around? Why would you want to be in a military like that? And that's why we see the recruitment within Russia is falling apart. People just do not want to join the military. And this despite the fact that they're offering wages, they're absolutely incredible. Far, far more than what a Russian would ever make in a normal job. But either way, they cannot find more soldiers. Because increasingly so, for everybody in Russia, it is clear that it's not a question if Ukraine will lose or with Russia will be able to take Kiev. The question is, how much longer can we endure this nightmare? And the good news is, Russia cannot endure this nightmare for much longer. Because for the regime of Vladimir Putin, every day is one day closer to its defeat. Thank you for watching. Please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. And leave your comments below what you think we might see next. And as always, thank you for supporting Ukraine.